My name is Erica Lang. At the dinner table, my mom's voice cut through the laughter. Erica, where's the $200,000? The fork slipped from my hand. $200,000. My stomach turned to ice. Across the table, my brother smirked like he already knew something I didn't. That night, I discovered a betrayal that didn't just steal my money, it tried to erase everything I'd built. But I wasn't about to let that happen. If you've ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you, hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready for one of the most satisfying revenge stories you'll hear this week. Because when family betrays you for money, sometimes the only justice is showing them what they lost. I can still hear the clinking of silverware that night, the sound that broke my entire world open. We were halfway through dinner when my mom set her fork down and looked straight at me. Erica, she said, her tone light but sharp enough to slice through conversation. What did you do with the $200,000? For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. 200 what? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. My palms went cold. Across the table, my brother Matt smirked like he knew something I didn't. His expression wasn't surprise, it was satisfaction. And that scared me more than the question itself. That dinner would become the moment everything changed, the night my family stopped being family, and I stopped being the quiet one who let things slide. But before we get there, you need to understand how we got here. How a simple dream, some fabric, and a whole lot of betrayal turned into a war. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, in a 2-story suburban house where the walls were lined with family photos, all perfectly framed, all perfectly balanced. Except nothing about our family was balanced. My parents, Clara and David Lang, were old school. Dad ran a small accounting firm, Mom stayed home. They had 2 kids, Matt, the golden boy, and me, the creative one. In our house, creativity was a cute distraction, not a career. Matt was the pride of their lives. Straight A's, MBA, worked in finance. The kind of guy who'd quote Warren Buffett at dinner and call himself a future CEO. Me. I was the disappointment wrapped in politeness. The girl who chose fashion design instead of finance, who talked about fabric sustainability when everyone else talked about stocks. I still remember my father's reaction when I told him I wanted to start my own brand. He laughed, actually laughed. Erica, he said, leaning back in his chair. Do you really think people will pay premium prices for recycled cotton? I smiled through it, the way daughters do when they've been dismissed their whole lives. Then I went to work. At 24, I started Eden Wear, a small sustainable fashion label I ran from my apartment. I hand-sewed the first 50 pieces myself, recycled linen dresses, minimalist designs, and sold them online. Each sale felt like validation. Each late-night email from a happy customer felt like I was stitching my purpose back together. Matt called it my hobby. Every time we saw each other, he'd smirk and say, "Still playing dress-up, sis?" It stung, but I kept quiet. Because deep down, I believed results would speak louder than any argument. And eventually, they did. Within 3 years, Edenwear was featured in a local lifestyle magazine. I secured partnerships with eco-influencers and landed my first small investor. The business account began to grow, slowly, steadily, beautifully. That's when I opened a special investment fund, a separate account just for the brand's expansion. My plan? To open a physical boutique in downtown Louisville. Every extra dollar went into that account. It was my safety net, my dream fund. No one except me, and my accountant, was supposed to know about it. But family has a way of finding out things you never told them. Especially when that family includes someone like Matt. He'd been visiting more often that year, dropping by unannounced, asking casual questions about how business was going. Wow, sis, you're doing really well now, huh? You must have a decent cushion saved up. At first, I brushed it off as sibling curiosity. But now, looking back, I realize he was casing me like a thief planning his entry. The first sign that something was wrong came in the form of a letter. It was from First National Bank, informing me that my loan application had been denied due to credit irregularities. I hadn't even applied for a loan. I called them immediately. The rep on the phone hesitated. Ms. Lang, according to our system, you already have an outstanding business line of credit for $200,000. My heart dropped. I'd never opened a credit line. And worse, my business fund balance had changed drastically. I logged in that night and just stared. $200,000. Gone. My throat went dry. I double-checked transactions, passwords, every detail. There it was, a single transfer, authorized electronically, sent to a Lang Holdings LLC. I'd never heard of it. My first instinct wasn't even anger, it was confusion. There had to be a mistake. Maybe the bank made an error. Maybe it was a glitch. But deep down, I knew who was behind it. The next morning, I called my mom. My voice shook. Mom, do you know anything about a transfer from my account? Something called Lang Holdings. Her tone was casual, almost dismissive. Oh, that's your brother's company, honey. He told us you two were working together now. I froze. What? Matt said you agreed to let him use your funds for a real estate project. Something about a family investment. He was so proud you were finally teaming up. I pressed my fingers to my temple. Mom, I never agreed to that. He took my money without permission. There was silence on the other end. Then a nervous laugh. Oh, sweetheart, don't be dramatic. He said you signed the paperwork. And that's when it hit me like a punch to the chest. He'd forged my signature. I called Matt. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Finally, I texted him. We need to talk. Now. Where's my money? An hour later, he replied. Chill, Erica. It's for the family. You'll thank me later. That was the moment I felt something inside me snap. Years of condescension, favoritism, being told to be grateful, all of it came rushing back like fire in my veins. He hadn't just stolen my money. He'd stolen my voice, the one thing I'd worked my entire life to build. And I made a promise right there, sitting in the half-lit corner of my studio, staring at an empty account balance. You will never get away with this, Matt. Not this time. I barely slept that night. I kept refreshing the banking app, half hoping the numbers would fix themselves, half hoping I'd wake up and realize it was a bad dream. But morning came, and the $200,000 was still gone. My studio felt colder than usual. The sewing machine sat silent, the air heavy with the smell of fabric dye and stale coffee. Every thread, every roll of linen, every invoice, all of it had been built from sacrifice. I called the bank again. The manager said, Ma'am, the transaction was authorized with your electronic signature. My what? I asked, my voice trembling. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Yes, ma'am. A document was submitted with your digital authorization. It matched your ID. My stomach turned. Can I see that document? He hesitated. You'll need to request it through legal channels. That's when I realized just how deeply my brother had gone. He hadn't just moved money, he fabricated identity-level access. I drove to my parents' house that evening. Their lights glowed warm against the twilight, but to me it looked like a crime scene. Mom was at the kitchen counter chopping vegetables. Mom, where's Matt? I asked, stepping inside. She looked up, startled. He's in his office. Why? Did something happen? Something happened. The understatement made my blood boil. Matt appeared in the doorway, sleeves rolled up, confident as ever. Hey, sis, he said, flashing that fake grin. What's with the drama? I threw the printed statement on the table. You stole my money. He glanced at it like it was a parking ticket. Borrowed, he said calmly. Relax, Erica. It's for a project that'll double your investment. I never agreed to anything, I snapped. You forged my signature. Mom turned pale. Matt, tell me she's wrong. But he just leaned back, smirking. Mom, you know Erica. She gets emotional about everything. I told her weeks ago about this plan. She must have forgotten. Forgotten. The word hit like poison. Dad walked in halfway through the argument, tired from work. He barely looked at me before saying, Erica, I'm sure Matt had good intentions. Family helps family. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Because at that moment, I realized something terrifying. They were never going to take my side. Not now, not ever. For days, I spiraled. My landlord warned me that my lease was ending soon. My suppliers started asking for payments I couldn't make. And Matt, he went silent. No texts, no calls. Just Instagram posts of him shaking hands with men in suits, captions about family ventures and the next big project. Each post was a dagger. I'd cry at night, exhausted, ashamed. The kind of shame that eats at you because you start believing the lie. Maybe you did bring this on yourself. Maybe you should have been smarter, louder, tougher. But somewhere between anger and despair, a small spark began to form. It started when my best friend, Naomi, stopped by. She found me surrounded by unopened bills, a cup of cold coffee beside my laptop. She didn't pity me. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Then make this the reason you rise higher." Those words hit harder than any sympathy could. I reopened my laptop, logged into Matt's company records, searched for Lang Holdings LLC. And there it was, a paper trail. An LLC registered 6 months ago, filed under Matthew Lang, primary owner. My name, listed once, as silent partner. Attached, a forged consent form with my digital signature. My hands trembled, but my mind was clear. I started saving everything. Screenshots, emails, bank documents, every trace of his deception. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't crying. I was planning. 4 weeks, I lived in silence. No calls to my parents, no messages to Matt. Just me, my laptop, and a quiet, focused kind of rage. The old Erica, the one who sought validation, was gone. This version of me didn't need anyone's permission to rebuild. I shut down the boutique temporarily, packed up the remaining inventory, and sold what little equipment I had left. I moved my sewing table into my living room, where sunlight spilled through the blinds each morning, a reminder that no matter how dark things got, the world didn't stop spinning. Naomi dropped by every evening after work, bringing takeout and tough love. "Don't waste your tears on him," she said. "You're smarter. Use it." And I did. The plan started small. I didn't have much money, but I had something better, experience and reputation. I started sketching again, not for boutiques, but for digital launches. If I couldn't afford a physical store, I'd go online, build a sustainable fashion brand designed for e-commerce, not walk-ins. I rebranded everything. New name, same vision, Edenwear 2.0. Naomi helped me design the website, while I reached out to eco-conscious influencers who'd once admired my early work. The response was slow at first. A few reposts, a few hundred followers, but within months, sales started trickling in again. Then streaming, then flooding. The world was changing. People wanted sustainability, authenticity, something real. And that's exactly what I was offering. By the end of that year, Edenwear had transformed from a local boutique dream into a digital powerhouse. My revenue hit 6 figures, then 7. I hired a small remote team. I partnered with ethical manufacturers overseas. I even got a call from a well-known lifestyle magazine. They wanted to feature me in a story titled, "Women Who Built Empires from Betrayal." That headline alone made me smile. But beneath that quiet triumph was something darker, something I hadn't forgotten, Matt's crime. While the brand grew, I worked another full-time job gathering proof. I hired a freelance forensic accountant, disguised as a business consultant, to trace the stolen funds. He confirmed what I already suspected. The $200,000 had been funneled through Lang Holdings LLC into 2 real estate deals, both under Matt's sole ownership. My signature appeared on multiple documents, all fabricated. It wasn't just theft. It was fraud, identity forgery, and embezzlement. He built his empire on my sacrifice. And now, I was building mine on his downfall. Then one afternoon, about a year later, an email popped up in my inbox. Subject: Family Dinner, Saturday, 7 p.m. From Mom. I stared at it for a full minute. A part of me wanted to ignore it, pretend I'd moved past it. But another part, the part that had been waiting for justice, knew this was the moment I'd been preparing for. I replied, "I'll be there." That entire week, I barely slept. Not from anxiety, but anticipation. By now, Edenwear 2.0 was featured in Vogue's Eco-Innovators list. I'd made over $2.4 million in sales and launched my second line. I had everything Matt stole from me, and more. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about truth. I wasn't that timid sister he could gaslight anymore. The night of the dinner, I walked into my parents' house wearing one of my own designs, a sleek emerald green suit, elegant and sharp. Mom hugged me nervously, whispering, "It's so good to see you, sweetheart. You look different." I smiled. I am. Matt was already there, seated like the king of the table. His Rolex glinted under the chandelier. He looked relaxed, smug, invincible. Dad raised a glass. To family success, he said proudly. Matt's doing incredible work, and Erica's doing her thing too. Polite laughter. Knives clinking. My heartbeat steady. I kept my expression calm, even when Mom leaned toward me and said, "By the way, honey, your father was just wondering, what did you ever do with that $200,000 you took out? We thought it was for your store." The room went quiet. Matt froze for a second, then forced a laugh. "Yeah, sis. Whatever did happen to that money?" That smirk again. That same, poisonous grin. And right there, I knew my moment had come. The silverware clinked, but no one moved. For a moment, I let the silence stretch, long enough for everyone to start feeling uncomfortable. I looked around the table. My mother's nervous smile. My father's curious frown. Matt's smug face, waiting for me to fumble like I always used to. But this time, I didn't flinch. I set my wine glass down slowly. "The 200,000, I said softly, was stolen." Mom blinked. "Stolen?" Dad chuckled awkwardly. "Oh, sweetheart, let's not ruin dinner with drama." But I didn't stop. "Stolen," I repeated louder this time. "From me. By your son." Matt's laugh was thin and cold. "Come on, Erica. Not this again. You've been holding on to that for a year now. Let it go." I leaned forward, my voice calm and razor sharp. "You forged my signature, Matt. You opened a fake LLC. You moved $200,000 out of my business fund without consent. Then you told our parents I agreed." Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Dad's face drained of color. "Erica, that's a serious accusation." "I know," I said, meeting his gaze. "That's why I made sure I could prove it." I reached into my bag and pulled out a slim, black folder, neatly labeled with tabs and signatures. I slid it across the table toward Dad. Bank statements, transaction IDs, forged consent forms, and emails showing Matt as the sole beneficiary of Lang Holdings. Matt's jaw tensed. "Where did you get that?" I smiled. "From the same lawyer who's currently reviewing your fraudulent business filings." The silence that followed was deafening. You could almost hear the sound of his confidence cracking. Mom whispered, "Matt, tell me she's lying." But he didn't. He just stared at the folder, his lips pressed tight, his knuckles white around his glass. I can explain," he finally stammered. "Please do," I said. His voice shook. "It was supposed to be temporary. You weren't using the money. I was going to double it and pay you back." I tilted my head. "By registering the property in your name only?" He blinked rapidly. "That was a mistake." "No," I said, my tone ice. "It was a choice." Dad's hands trembled as he flipped through the papers. His eyes darted from signature to signature. "Matt, this looks exactly like Erica's handwriting." Matt's face hardened. "I was just trying to help. She's always been reckless. I made a business move for both of us. That broke something in me." I stood up, palms flat on the table. "Reckless," I said. "You stole from me, lied to our parents, tanked my credit, and nearly destroyed my company, and I still came out stronger. I built a 7-figure brand while you played house with stolen money." His chair scraped back violently. "You think you're better than me?" I looked him dead in the eye. "No. I just stopped letting you decide who I am." I turned to my parents. "You always told me family helps family. So tell me, when he took everything from me, why didn't any of you help me?" No one spoke. Mom had tears in her eyes. Dad stared at the folder like it was evidence of his own failure. After a long pause, I straightened my blazer and said quietly, "Don't worry. I'm not pressing charges." Matt let out a shaky breath, half relieved, half confused. "But you should know," I added, "the investors you brag about? They already know the truth. When they found out about your forged filings, they pulled out. Your LLC is under review. By next week, it'll be dissolved." He froze. "What?" "I made sure of it," I said simply. The air went still. My mom's hands covered her mouth. Dad's glass slipped and shattered against the tile. Matt's expression collapsed. All arrogance gone, replaced by disbelief and panic. "You ruined me," he whispered. I took my purse, slung it over my shoulder, and looked back one last time. "No, Matt," I said softly. "You did that yourself. Then I walked out. No raised voice. No slammed door. Just quiet footsteps, leaving behind the ghosts of a family that had never really seen me. The sound of the front door closing behind me felt different that night. Final, clean, like the punctuation at the end of a chapter that had dragged on too long. The cold air outside hit my face, but it didn't sting. It felt like freedom. I stood in the driveway for a moment, watching the faint glow of the dining room through the window. Inside, I could still see my parents sitting in silence, my mother clutching her napkin, my father staring blankly at the table where my folder lay open. Matt had his hands over his face, shaking his head in disbelief. That image, of them speechless for the first time, stayed with me. For years, I'd begged for them to hear me. Tonight, they finally did. The next few weeks were surreal. News of Matt's real estate empire collapsing spread fast. Investors pulled out. Projects stalled. And when his fraudulent filings became public record, no one wanted to touch his name. He tried calling me. Once. Then twice. Then a dozen times. I never picked up. He sent a text. Please. We can fix this. I deleted it. Because this wasn't about fixing anymore. It was about closure. My parents tried to reach out too. My mom left long voicemails, apologies tangled with guilt. Your father and I didn't know. We thought he was helping you. We're so sorry, sweetheart. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. I wasn't angry anymore, I was done. So instead of replying, I sent her a link. It was to a feature on Edenware titled The Woman Who Turned Betrayal into a $1 billion Vision. Below the headline, a quote. Sometimes the people who break you are the ones who hand you the tools to rebuild stronger. I didn't need to say anything else. Edenware flourished. The brand went global. We opened warehouses, expanded into new product lines, and partnered with environmental organizations across the country. I hired women who'd been shut out of opportunities, single mothers, immigrants, survivors. I made sure every paycheck we signed carried meaning. In every press interview, when they asked, "What inspired you to start?" I'd smile and say, "Family." Only I knew the irony. A year later, I was invited to a sustainability gala in New York. I wore one of my own designs, a flowing white silk gown with emerald accents. Reporters took photos as I stepped onto the stage to accept the Innovator of the Year award. I thanked my team. I thanked my customers. And then I paused. I used to think betrayal was the end of a story, I said, my voice steady over the crowd. But sometimes, it's just the plot twist you need to find your purpose. The applause that followed didn't feel like validation, it felt like peace. Weeks later, Naomi and I were having coffee when she laughed softly and said, "You know what the best part of your revenge was?" I raised an eyebrow. "What?" "You didn't even have to destroy him. You just outgrew him." She was right. Matt lost his company, his investors, his credibility. But I didn't lift a finger to ruin him. I just lived well, and let truth do the rest. One evening, while leaving my office, I found a letter in the mail. No return address. No signature. Just 2 words, written in my brother's handwriting. "I'm sorry." I folded it carefully, placed it in my drawer, and whispered to myself, "So am I." Because I was sorry too. Sorry that it took so long for me to realize I didn't need anyone's permission to win. Sometimes revenge isn't about shouting or burning bridges. It's about building something so solid that their betrayal becomes irrelevant. People will betray you, underestimate you, and try to rewrite your story, but they can't touch the chapters you write after you rise. Erica didn't just get her money back. She got her power, her voice, and her peace. And in the end, that's worth more than any $200,000 could ever buy. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and tell us in the comments. Speech Balloon, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? And remember, justice doesn't always come from anger. Sometimes, it comes from success. Subscribe for more true stories of betrayal, transformation, and sweet, sweet payback. Right here on Revenge Storm.